Okay, welcome back to the Reputation Revolution. My name is Trevor Young, and this is the podcast for all things personal brand, influence, and all that pertains to that, which is quite a lot of stuff. My guest today is a man called Ian Whitworth, and he is what he calls himself a reformed branding and advertising creative director, and he's turned himself into an entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of a company called Scene Change. It's a national corporate audiovisual company that once used a toothless gypsy lady to help set its strategy. We'll dig more into that. Ian studied it as a vet and became a corporate AV technician. He was apparently exposed to something dastardly. It's radioactive megadoses of corporate motivator shtick, where he realized that these motivators are generally 99% showbiz and 1% business experience. We'll dig into that as well. More importantly, for the purposes of today's episode, Ian is a blogger and a published author with a major publisher, and he's got a new book out called Undisruptable: Timeless Business Truths for Thriving in the World of Non-Stop Change. I'm holding that up. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm holding it up. All right, welcome to the show, Ian. What were you doing 10 years ago?
Delight to be with you, Trevor. Remember it well. Our business was about 3 or 4 years old, and we had just gotten on the BRW magazine fast-growing list. For those who remember BRW magazine, that was pretty prestigious, and we're like so pleased with ourselves. We're like, hell yes, we are fast-growing entrepreneurs, crushing it, etc. Rounds of drinks. This is exactly where we hope to be. A week later, get a phone call from the accountant who's like, yeah, we've just had the tax department get in touch, and they've just realised that your business isn't just in one state, it's in 4 states. So you're effectively grouped for tax purposes, so you should have been paying payroll tax and a bunch of other things about 1.5 years ago, so you owe them $100,000. We're like, really? That killed our buzz. So I always suggest try and stay off those lists or do other things. Stay off those lists. Don't buy a Lamborghini or anything else that will cause the ATO to go,
Yeah, stick your head up over the parapet, but still good kudos for, it's pretty tough to get onto those business lists, and BRW, the late BRW, no longer published, but that was a very important list in the business publishing world. I want to dig into a number of things today, but tell us a little bit about the book first. Undisruptable, very hard word to say. I keep going to say calling it indescribable, but it kind of is indescribable. And I must say congratulations first, because getting a book away is really, really hard, as you will attest, no doubt. And, it's a good size, but if anyone reads business books and are quite jaded by business books, you'll love this one because it is very funny. I described it in a social post when I first got it and read it, and I called it a rollicking good read. So tell us a bit about it. How did it come about? And because I want to dig into how you got a deal with a major publisher, being Penguin and Random House Penguin, isn't it?
Penguin Random House.
Random House Penguin. They've all merged a lot of these publishers, but a major publisher here in Australia. What's the backstory?
The backstory was as books so often start, was a bar bet with a friend about 5 years ago. It's like, I challenge you to write a book, my friend, in the way that mustachioed gadabouts used to challenge each other to a hot air balloon race around the world. It's like, the winner of this book race will buy the other one beer. So my friend then subcontracted his book to a ghostwriter who provided a first draft 6 months later, which he has not read yet. I went the hard path and went, okay, Google how long is a business book? 70,000 words. So I knuckled down and wrote a business book at 1,000 words per day and got it done. It's like, time to get this thing published, having zero idea of how publishing works. And so I put it out to some contacts with some of the major publishers. One of the big names, the contributing editor commissioning editor went, oh my God, I love this. It's like a business book, only I want to read it. That's never happened before. And I'm like, cool, hell yeah, get ready to sign a contract. And she kept sending emails going, yeah, I've passed on to all the other commissioning editors and they agree. I didn't realise that in publishing, in the big publishing houses, the commissioning editors go to a meeting where the sales and marketing departments have the Roman emperor in the Colosseum power of life or death over it. And what they said was like, we've Googled this guy and he's not famous at all. So what we want is someone who is more like old mate barefoot investor who can just sell a book to their billion followers. This guy doesn't have any followers, so no deal. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's disappointing. So I then had to go, right, try to become famous. Did a bunch of PR, which got lots of TV appearances and so on, but not really much in the way of blog followers, because you can spend an awful lot of time doing interviews on AM radio to cranky old presenters and their cranky old audience, who none of whom are ever going to start a damn business. So I just knuckled down and blogged for about 3 years, putting out sort of 1,000-word story every week, kind of iron discipline thing. And as luck would have it, as reverse luck would have it, COVID came along and killed all my businesses. Our businesses are in events. We've got a national business with about 65 full-time staff and several hundred casuals. And suddenly our entire business was made illegal, and we're all just sitting around just going, uh-oh, we're in deep trouble here. So I started blogging along the subject of how to stop your business from dying by next week. The numbers went up, and lo and behold, good old Penguin Random House got in touch and said, "Hey, we've been enjoying your live eye reports from the front lines of your burning businesses. Have you ever thought about writing in a book?" And I'm like, "Good question, Penguin Random House." And of course, I still don't. Being an ex-creative director, I still don't know if I'm a business guy who can write, or a writer who's worked out how to run businesses. So for me, Penguin were the holy grail of this. So it was a very tense 2 or 3 months while it went through the whole Penguin process. And then, eventually they went, yes, do a book, here's a contract. So obviously the original book got revised a lot. But that was how it happened. So absolute lifelong dream. And you'd like to think that your hope is that dealing with Penguin Random House would be a lovely experience, dealing with pleasant people who love books and writing and care about quality. But you go, well, they are, after all, a really big international company, so you got to temper your expectations. But they were actually even more lovely and cared more about books than I'd even hoped for. It was just an absolute delight from start to finish, got to say. So, very happy with that experience.
And out it comes. How long were you given to write it?
About 6 months.
Yep, and a good chunk of it's all written.
Yeah. I mean, I rewrote a fair amount of it, and then probably half of it was new, just dealing with changing times, and some chapters you look at and you just go, not good enough, write better. And then editing's about sort of 3 or 4 months, which is pretty full on, but again, super enjoyable.
Yep. And so the book is, it just cuts a swathe across starting and running a business. It's so many business books are pretty blah, let's face it. And, some are very serious and they're good and they're very serious, or they're very focused on a particular niche. Yours is not kind of focused in that regard. I mean, it's about business generally, and you do veer on and off the tracks all the time and bring it back. So each chapter, it feels like a blog post. How important was writing the blog to find your voice? Because, I think that if you start blogging, it will make you more of a conversational writer. I know that's what it did with me. Do you find that the book itself is like a series of blog posts?
It is. My goal was to write a book that people could read on a plane. I spent a lot of time on planes. Well, I used to in the far off ancient times, and I hope to again. And So the idea was to come up with something where you could just read a bit and not have to remember where you were up to last time. You can literally open the book at any point and go, no, I like the name of that chapter. Let's have a read of that. And particularly for people who got kids or whatever, like I got friends who I've given the book to, and they're like, it was good. I was able to read one chapter per month because that's the amount of free time my kids allow me at that point. And when you write ads, you learn to get to the point in about 3 words, because if you don't, you've lost them. So I think it's good to bring that ad discipline to it. And in terms of the blogging, it's like exercise. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and there is no substitute for doing the work. My writing, 3 years of blog writing undoubtedly made me better at blogging, better at writing. You just get better instinctively.
You do, and I guess there's a couple of ways of looking at it too. Writing, and the book's done very well. I've seen that it's sort of up to #1 in areas of, I'm not sure which category, but it's competing with some pretty heavy-hitting books, which is a great achievement, considering that I think I read somewhere where you wanted it in airport bookshops, and of course it's perfect for airport bookshops, but there's no one at the airport, so that's a major distribution point that's probably not working for you at this point. But it is selling, and I think maybe part of it is the fact that you can dip in and out pretty much anywhere through it. I think there's, as you said, what are they called? Timeless business truths. And so I think what you've done is a sort of a different take on running a business. But, to be fair, there's quite a lot of vulnerability in it as well. I mean, you do tell stories, and they're funny stories, but, there's some stuff that you go through, warts and all. I don't feel that you hold back on anything, put it that way.
Well, I got no time for those business books where it's like, oh, I'm so great. I mean, the subtext of most business books is, be more like me. And, I don't know about that. I have some suggestions. So I'm putting the book forward to, I guess, show that, we have a successful business. And I wanted to write the book to show that you can succeed without being a dick and without being a relentless, all-about-me self-promoter. Because the effort is largely is about my business partners and our staff, and I'm not going to claim credit for that. I'm just the one who likes writing about it once a week. But I don't think a lot of business books for me are very serious, and they don't convey just the sheer joy of business. I mean, I swear to God, it is just tremendous entertainment. Like my business partners and I just get on the phone most days and just laugh about stuff because it's just so enjoyable having, I guess, control over your own destiny. And I wanted to get that, I guess, joy across. And it's been nice that, there's been people I really respect like Zoe Foster-Blake and Cyan Taid Frinvado, and people who have massive runs on the board have put up posts going, this book gets what business is actually like. This is kind of the truth, because there's a lot of bullshit written about business.
Yeah, and doing it with humour. I want to discuss humour because there are funny people who write books that aren't funny or business books. Was that just a natural thing, or did you have to try harder to? I mean, I feel that reading your blog that your writing style is naturally funny anyway. You take the humorous side of things, not that you're out there trying to be funny, but you do take, that's your thing, is you do take the humorous side. How did that play out with the writing the book and trying to juggle? This is still a serious book, but it's quite funny to read.
Yeah, I just think if you've got serious points, then humour just helps people want to read it. I was a nerdy, unsporting child, so while everyone else was playing sports, I was locked away reading Clive James and Peter Cook and people like that. They were sort of my heroes, and so that stuff's kind of soaked in, I guess, at an instinctive level. And it's not like I'm trying to write jokes. Like, no, jokes suck, and I just hate being in a room where people are trying to tell jokes. And then he said, "Now we're gonna get some sleep." but if you can get a point over with a way that describes, I don't know, tax liabilities in a way that makes it interesting, then that hopefully will get people to know more about tax liabilities and other things that can kill your business. Textbooks are dull. Also, in my time as an event technician, I spent a lot of time up the back of the room watching both the motivators you mentioned in the intro and just general speakers. And I've seen a billion bullet points presented and all kinds of rational facts, and I've forgotten them all, and so have all those audiences, whereas I can still remember entertaining stories that someone told several decades ago and just go, yeah, Bryce Courtney said this story and it stayed with me forever and has been a genuine help to me in the business. You remember, but we've been conditioned to listen to stories since we all sat around cave fires, and that ain't going away, whatever the technology.
Correct. We've got more venues or mediums through which to tell those stories. So let's look at that storytelling. I mean, again, like every other word it's been bastardized in the marketing language, and storytelling hasn't escaped that. You've got everyone talking about storytelling and the hero's journey and blah 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 blah. Yeah. And a lot of those people who purport to be storytellers don't actually ever tell stories, which is quite interesting. But your book is full of stories, and they're just sort of small anecdote. They're quite. No, they're all, the stories are dotted throughout. I mean, this is a business book of stories, isn't it? Like they're dotted throughout, and that's again, it's something that's quite rare. Is that something that's just natural, or do you really have to think about putting stories in?
I like telling a story. I like being in a bar, surrounded by people, telling a story. Oh, I'm just getting all misty-eyed just thinking about it now. I just like stories. I mean, I couldn't give you a technical analysis of how to put a story together, but they're fun to tell. And there's stories are good, and just tell the story. Don't put fucking brand storyteller in your LinkedIn profile or whatever. It's like being cool. If you have to say the word cool, you're not cool. So it's or trust me. Anyone who says trust me, it's like, now that you've said it, I don't know if I can trust you. So storyteller is in is in that category. Yeah, just work on telling the stories, and people will be the judge of whether you are a storyteller or not.
Yeah, it makes a difference, I think, and so I guess that you package that up to, so you've found your voice, and you probably found that through blogging. But I mean, it's nothing that wasn't already there. The blogging, I mean, you've blogged for how many years now? Quite a few now.
Yeah, 4 years nearly.
And if you're doing it weekly, I mean, that turns into after a few years. I mean, you've got quite a few stories under your belt then.
Here's a tip.
If you look back at your early stories, or your early blog posts, and you look at what you're doing now, have you, how much do you think you've improved in your writing?
42%. I don't know. A thing I've found, here's a tip if you're trying to write stuff and get better at stories. I do an audio version of the blog each week, and I'll write the story and go, all right, that's a pretty sweet story. Let's do the recording. And I'll record it, and I'll trip over words, and I'll just go, oh man, that's terrible. You need to go back and write that better. And so the act of recording it and saying your words out loud gives you a much better idea of whether it hangs together as a story. You can really feel the size and shape of it. So I recommend that. And I've learned what works and what doesn't. You have to balance it, I guess. I've done a few. Some of the biggest stories of me being really getting stuck into something in an amusing way, and I'm quite good at I guess, entertainingly shredding someone or something. Can I swear on this podcast? I feel I already have.
Go for it. Go for
There
it.
was a thing that really gets my goat is obviously the whole JobKeeper rotting thing. And I did a story called "Fuck You, Solomon Lew" the other week about greedy old pigs like him and Jerry Harvey taking taxpayer money that should have gone to people that actually needed it. And speaking as a business that genuinely did get smashed in COVID, and if we hadn't got JobKeeper, our businesses would have died. Not so them. And so stories like that really do massive numbers. Everyone that does in those algorithms knows that anger gets more clicks than happiness. But I don't want to be cranky, take the piss writer every week. So if I write one like that, I then make sure that the next week I write something nice and positive. I think the next week it was about the awesomeness of Sikhs stepping up in the community and just how to be a generally better human being in these difficult times. And so over time you sort of develop a portfolio where you can go, I'm getting the number of clicks, but also I'm not just being mean all the time, no matter how amusing it is. Yep. So that's a balance I think it helps to strike.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's one thing, and I wouldn't say you're controversial. I'd say you're provocative. I mean, some of those that was provocative, but it's got the veil of humour as well, and that's for people who. Listening outside of Australia, JobKeeper was the money the government gave to businesses outside of during COVID, and some of the biggest tycoons, retail tycoons in the country, pocketed quite well, not them, but their companies made quite a bit of money off the back of that. So that's what the basis of that story was, and obviously it's society wise, it was a big talking point at the time. So with there's a billion business blogs out there and entrepreneurs writing stuff, and the type. You would have read half a dozen of them or over the journey, a few of them. But how do you come up with your ideas? Because you're not. It's not as if it doesn't feel to me anyway that you've got a structured content strategy per se. It feels to me that you see a great idea and you write about it pretty much. Now, in our industry, there's planners and there's pantsers, and there's people who love planning and outlining something till it's pretty much all written, versus the pantsers who fly by the seat of their pants. Yeah. I might be wrong, but I think you might be a pantser. But tell me I'm wrong. All right.
It's finding a topic is the hardest thing. And I used to, when I was less confident in my ability to come up with a topic, I would try to write them 2 weeks in advance or whatever. Now, having done it for a while, I'll generally put the blog out. I'll write it on a Monday, put it out on the Tuesday, and then start thinking about what next week is going to be, waiting for something to happen that I can... It generally comes from an experience I've had either in the business or in the media. And I'll go, is this 1,000 words worth of material? And then I'll sort of maybe sketch it out. Now make some notes on the Sunday, and then just write the bugger on Monday, and out it goes. So I'm reasonably comfortable that I can do it, but that's taken a while to feel that confidence. The important thing is to get it out every week, regardless. Yes, everyone, as you know, everyone starts a blog. No one keeps it going. So it's I guess one of my core identities and values of myself that I'm going to get the damn work done. For anyone kind of our age with an interest in music, I would call it the Henry Rollins work ethic of just quit your whining, get the work done, and don't let people down, because your audience is more important than your own puny needs. And I think that's important. There's joy in discipline. Sometimes I've no idea whether there'll be another book. I do find myself going, maybe I should save that for a future book. because you can burn a lot of material doing a blog every week. So the blog at the moment, I try to work off something that's happening at the moment, which would make no sense to appear in a future book.
Yeah. And so, keeping your eyes out, and obviously issues out there, you've just named a couple of them that they were a story that appeared and then you had a view on it, and that's that sort of see the story, put it out there, put my spin on it sort of thing. Yep. And then you've got stuff that is, like is in the book, it's timeless. It's kind of, it's stuff that's probably going to be relevant for years down the track. Is that another thing that you try and balance out so you've got a bit of material that has a little bit more legs?
Yeah, I mean, there are some overarching themes, I guess, in what I'm writing about, because and a lot of that is covered by when I was an employee. We worked for an incredible company which grew to massive size, floated, and then it was bought by private equity finance wizards who came in and effectively killed its soul with a whole bunch of MBA thinking. And so when we set our business up to compete with them, our number one rule was whatever the MBAs would do, we do the opposite. Keep it simple, less management, less finance, and ironically, that's allowed us to build a business which is much more financially profitable than other businesses in our field, purely by getting rid of a lot of just meetings, time wasting, multi-layered management, and all that sort of stuff. So that's a consistent theme through the book, which we've tested with our own money and found it to work. A lot of people, if you're starting out in a career, you have this belief that your boss is some kind of high priest expert who knows everything. This is kind of just drawing the curtain away a bit, sort of Wizard of Oz style, and going, guess what? There's just a tiny little old man behind that curtain. Maybe it doesn't have to be done that way. So there's a lot of material in that. There's a lot of stories of stupid management wasting money, and case studies of what we've done to show you can just do it a simpler, more personal way and still have a really good business.
It's not a bad technique too to have in air quotes an enemy that you can do the opposite about and use lessons learned from what you see around the world is what other businesses are doing, and particularly those that are stuffing it up from a management and leadership perspective and then doing the opposite. It's a good mechanic, isn't it, to tell a story? It's
great. The original copy of the book, which I to be honest, really loved, and as did the commissioning editors back in the other publisher, was Kill All MBAs. And I said, "You okay with the title?" They went, "We love it." But that was the original title of the blog. But given the changing times, we ended up not going with that. It is good to have a straw man enemy to write about. You feel energized, right? It's just like, yeah, and another thing.
And now with the title, Undistruptable, that's a made-up word, but it's now the name of your blog, and it means that you own the territory. And then you basically write around what being undisruptable means, even though it's a hard word to say. Is that something you like, changing the name of your blog and going down that path? Was that and launching straight into embracing the name? Have you found that? And because you're going to be with this name for quite a while until another book comes out.
I am. It's a testament to the value of outside advice. And there's a theme in the book about how, as an ex-creative director, I think the most important skill that I was able to bring to clients from that was the ability to come in and look at their product and with the cold detachment of someone who doesn't love it. Because all clients love their product, they love their industry, and as a result, they're quite insular, and if everyone in the industry is doing the same thing, they revert to the mean. So sometimes you need to get someone external to just come and look at it and just go, yeah, you know what, you should do something different. So that's what Penguin did. I mean, the book, one of the big themes of the book was by teaching people how to quit their job that sucks and set up their own business, it makes them much less or much safer in a world where jobs are being casualized, where robots are taking over a whole bunch of careers permanently, and taking that approach literally saved us. When our businesses got shut through COVID, if we hadn't been using these philosophies, we wouldn't have had as strong a balance sheet. We wouldn't have been able to control our own destiny, and we wouldn't have been able to survive COVID, which is coming up for nearly 18 months of shutdown with all our staff intact. So I actually wrote the word undisruptable in a draft chapter list for Penguin late one night as part of the pitch process. And they came back to it and said, that word undisruptable, we think that's a good book title. And I'm like, I don't even remember writing that. It was late at night, and I did this whole chapter list in like 20 minutes. And it's like, oh, hello, old word. I don't remember you, but hey. And so they liked it. And people were like, great title. And I'm like, good, I'm glad you think that way. But I can't pretend it was a grand strategy. It was a random accident that was found by Penguin.
Well, a little bit of luck goes a long way. I said at the outset about how your business was, got your strategy from a toothless gypsy lady. What's the story behind that? Because I think it was actually a blog post about what was it, McKinsey? Do you want to go to McKinsey for advice or a toothless gypsy lady? McKinsey. What's the background on that? Because it just tickled my fancy, basically.
It goes to the core of how my business partner and I operate, in that we do know what we're doing, but also it's kind of enjoyable just to be able to get kind of a bit loose just because it's entertaining. So our business had grown. It was getting to the point where we spoke of earlier of it was in 4 states, and at that stage I think, and going quite well. And we thought, well, this is the point where we should really consider our practices. We should consider our strategy going forward, and are we the correct use of capital and assets and staffing and so on. So we budgeted 50. That's not 50 grand. That's the banknote with a pineapple. And we thought, well, should we go to PwC or McKinsey and get some best practice advice? And we're like, well, no, they're very expensive, and we've been in rooms with those people. I've been in rooms with them on branding projects, and they're big on PowerPoint, but they're not great on actually delivering stuff that's useful. So instead, we sent my business partner with his $50 to a tarot card reader, and he's very poker face guy. Like, he's been in a lot of meetings. You can't sort of he's hard to read. And she went through it and she said, okay, you have 4 businesses. They're doing well, except a bit of issues with one of them in a remote geographical location. You will close one of them and you will open another closer to home. And just went through a whole bunch of other stuff. And I swear to God, like, a consulting company could not have been more accurate if we give them information. It was absolutely mental how on the money the toothless gypsy lady was in her tarot tent, and it was super entertaining because we did end up closing one of the offices. We'd opened it, and it was the business was going okay, but it was in a regional place, and it was always going to be a small family business with no return to external equity holders. So we did pull out of that one, and we were so tempted to say, look, we're pulling out because toothless gypsy lady told us to. We didn't say that. It would have been funny. But what we do is, when we're having a chat at conferences or whatever with competitors, we tell them the gypsy story, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, you did that? We're like, yeah, we did. We found it entertaining. And they're like, these people could do literally anything. So it just makes us harder to read in the competitive situation, because when they're thinking these people will take advice from a gypsy lady, then they could do any mad thing. So it creates myths and legends. So yeah, we sent him along another probably for the next 5 years, and all in all, they were pretty accurate. We didn't do any major strategic decisions based entirely on that, but they were surprisingly good backup for what our thoughts were.
That's a ripper story.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things you...
And sometimes... sometimes this is the beauty of the blog, when terrible things happen, and we have had just some horrendous stuff happen, and the business is being shut down for COVID and the tax thing I spoke of earlier, and you just go, oh man, that is a disaster. What are we going to do? And we talk through what we're going to do, and then at the end I go, well, that may have cost us a 6-figure amount of money, but on the upside, that's 1 week's blog content. Cheers for that.
It's a ripper yarn. And so thanks very much for your time, Ian. And I just want to sort of encapsulate a few sort of, I guess, lessons out of all of this. Because number one is, you've gone from unknown to being an author with Penguin or Penguin Random House. But number two is that, you didn't get it straight away, and rarely anyone will get a book deal. If you want a book deal, if you want to, do your own, you can, you don't have to be a big name, but, they're not going to give a book deal in a business book sense or a non-fiction to someone who probably hasn't got what they'd call a platform. They probably use that word on you, and hasn't got an audience already built in, whether that's social media or blogging or whatever. So, if you do want to get a business book away, then you really do need to build that platform well in advance. Second one is blogging can help you fine-tune your voice. So when you do a book, then you're going to be a much, much better writer. And as you heard, Ian had been blogging for 3 years and really found the voice. And I think the other thing that I really like is that you've found your voice, but you're willing to put yourself out there and look at the scars and the things that haven't gone wrong as much as the things that have gone right. And, we see too many people in business that only focus on the great stuff, when what we like is that's fine, but how did you get there? What's the journey like? Because we know the journey is zigzag. It's not all one way. And so, resonating with your audience through telling stories and learning lessons from it, and then adding a layer of humour on top. That's the go-to. I mean, not everyone can do that, of course. You're a natural storyteller, but stories, humour, telling the behind the scenes there, and then writing every week, in your case 1,000 words a week, that's what you got to do. They're the things that are going to get you noticed. Have I missed anything out?
No, there's no shortcuts. I think that admitting bad things that have happened to you and your weakness, I think COVID's really changed the game there. I think that showing your vulnerability and showing that you're less than perfect and here's lots of mistakes I've made used to be a bit weird, but I think people really relate to it now. I think that's important.
But for all the fun and the lessons learned and the issues you've had over the time, you've still got a business that's employing 65 people in an industry that's been belted by COVID, and you did pivot, and you're doing a lot more online stuff as well now. So, you've managed to get through it. So clearly, you know what you're doing. That's the starting point. A lot of people out there who are listeners who have got the chops and done the hard yards, and they've got the stories, and I think all I want to implore on them is just get them out more, and blogging is a really great way to do it. To put a book out with all that sort of stuff is probably you might do I want to do this because it's a permanent artifact out there in the marketplace, but I think blogging is a fantastic stepping stone to get to that. So I recommend you, listeners, or viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to Ian's blog. I think you'll find you'll enjoy it, but you'll also get lessons and some great ideas from it as well. But you will actually enjoy the writing, and just go and have a look at some of the headlines. And I think my favourite is a bikie is in your supply chain. That was one of my favourites. In fact, that's where I first read about you, Ian. That one popped out of Twitter. So and thinking headlines, and they're the things that attract people to your work. Ian, what's the best? The book again is Undisruptable: Timeless Business Truths for Thriving in a World of Non-Stop Change. And where's the best way that people can find you and connect with you?
If you are in obviously the book is in, as they say, all good bookstores and bad ones and in between. Otherwise, I blog every week at ianwhitworth.net. Just search my name, Whitworth, WHITWORTH. And it's on written and audio versions. So smash into it.
Fantastic. Oh, did you do the audio?
Yes. Well,
you recorded
for the audio book?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my God. Just having someone else read my own book out would be my worst nightmare. I did read that. So, that was all good, clean fun. Just a final point for you recommending blogging as a way to get you places. I also recommend it even if it gets you nowhere, writing is thinking. The act of actually getting stuff down in a structured form, even if nobody reads it, is valuable to clarify what you are, what you stand for, and what you do. So I really recommend it no matter what it leads to.
Yeah, really good point. I agree 100%. 110% even. Okay, thanks very much, Ian.
I delight talking to you, Trevor.
Cheers.